Councilmember Porter,
Present.
Councilmember Middleton,
Present.
Councilmember Kavanaugh,
Present.
Councilmember Dundon, Councilmember Strawn,
Present.
Councilmember Hotchkiss,
Present.
Council President Matavetsky.
Present. Great. And with that, we are ordinance to amend the 2024 budget to pay a responsibility adjustment to acting Parks Commissioner until Chair.
Hi, Kent. How you doing? We're
Good.
doing all right. If you could just go over the explanation and for this legislation.
Speak in the microphone.
Sure.
Oh, there. we go. So yeah. No. So we got an acting director in there to be able to do that.
Switch the other one. No. Weird today. Testing. It's working. Sorry.
It's okay. Can you hear me now? Oh, yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, so they're just moving the money temporarily until we fill the position or they return, which we're not sure which one of those two things is going to happen first, but it'll just take care of that. Shouldn't be any longer, until that date.
Okay. I don't have any questions. Well,
All right. Does any other council member have any questions?
At that April date, and that's when you're assuming you'll know whether they're coming back to work or if you have to. Outside.
Yeah, that's correct. That's kind of the decision date. Yep.
So if that's a decision date, then after that point, that's when it gets posted more publicly.
That's correct.
And so we'll have another RL similar to this that says until it's filled or.
Right, then you get to see me again. We'll be saying that, yeah, we're going to fill that position on the open market, more or less, yeah.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
I would just want to ask, is this like a standard practice to like fill in this way? Like, that temporary, it's like almost like a temporary promotion, but the acting commissioner doesn't know if they're going to stay acting commissioner.
That's correct. Well, that's all correct, but it's not a standard procedure. I think that's the second time we've had that since I've been here, so it's really highly circumstantial.
Thank you.
All right. So we're ready to move on?
Yep.
Okay. So
Thank you, Ken.
thank you. Yes.
You're welcome.
Thank you. So now we have RL 24-48, an ordinance to amend the code of the city of Binghamton, chapter 124, section 26 to update eligibility for retiree health insurance. We welcome down presenters Jared Cram and Chuck Shager, and I hand things over to our committee chair, Councilman Porter, chair of the Employees Committee.
hello, Mayor.
Hi there.
I just need you to go over what we're doing now that we amending this.
Yep. So, you want me to just give a kind of brief overview? Okay. So in December, actually, let me take it back quite a ways. The city of Binghamton used to provide retiree health insurance through a program that was managed by the state some point in the mid-80s, the state dropped that program. And so it was left to municipalities to decide, at least in Binghamton's case, whether or not this would be offered as a benefit to retirees and under what terms. And so, really in practice up until about 2009, there wasn't necessarily anything in terms of how this worked. Some point during the Ryan administration, it was made a policy that employees that were hired after January 1st, 2009 would have to be required to have 20 years of service to the city. And that employees who were before January 1st, 2009 had to have only 10. So as you can imagine, any employee that was hired after 2009 up until a couple of years ago would never have had enough years in to retire as a city retiree. So starting in 2019, 2021, we started to have a circumstance in which this was coming up. The problem is that there was no language in our charter that authorized the controller to provide this as a benefit. And in fact, if the New York State Controller came in, all we would have is really kind of past practice to point to this 10-year versus 20-year issue. So in December 2021, there was a law that was passed to basically codify that as part of our law and part of our charter. Again, having that go to a date that was in the past caused some issues. And I was first made aware of it last year when an employee who had 10 years of service and hit that 10 years before the 2021 law was passed. So if they were to retire at that time, could have made the argument that they were eligible for that benefit. After the law was passed, was clearly not eligible for that benefit. So this had come up with our collective bargaining unions for some time. And what we have attached here is what we believe is a fix to the underlying issue that clarifies who is eligible for retiree health insurance. It sets a date in the future, which is the cleanest way to do it than picking a random date in the past, which was kind of done before. So it allows for more coverage. It also codifies the ability for folks who are doing military buyback time. If you're a firefighter and you've worked 17 years at the city of Binghamton and 3 years of military service, sorry, I'm looking over their way, but 3 years of military service, you can buy that back through the state retirement system. In the previous versions of this, it was unclear whether that could be applicable towards your retirement health insurance benefit or not. So it clarifies all of that. I do think that we will have further discussions with the unions, specifically police and fire, on ways to manage transfers, which are becoming more and more prevalent. If you work 8 years NYPD and you want to transfer to Binghamton, we definitely want to have you. But do you have to transfer to Binghamton and then work 20 years just here in order to get health insurance benefits? That's, I think, a key question that we're going to have to work through separately from this with the unions. But this provides clarity and clears up all of the kind of question marks that retirees who got 10 years of service in that 19, 20, 21 time period have. And we do have a handful of retirees that this would immediately assist. And I know that the unions are pushing for it. Well, that's very long-winded of me, but
Thank you.
it's a long-winded issue.
Thank you.
And I appreciate the clerk's office and council's patience as we've worked through several iterations of it, as well as the help of Corporation Counsel to make sure that the law we send down here is prudent and doesn't cause more issues.
So with my background in the unions, I've actually been my ear to the ground with this and talked to different teams through the CSEA members. And I did see that Chuck just walked in, so I went back and watched the 12, 22, 2021 YouTube video. And the explanation he gave tonight was very thorough. The explanation that was given to that council seemed very vague in the way. So I'm not working. Is that better? Oh, there we go. So All right, I'll start back from the beginning. So I went back and watched the December 2020. Oh my God, I'm trying to say this too fast. December 22nd, 2021 YouTube video. On that YouTube video, the explanation that was given to the council at that time seemed kind of vague in how they were rolling this back, and it just seemed like it was going to be cost savings for the city versus the explanation you gave today, which I appreciate that. Is there any reason why it seemed like that just, it wasn't, I mean, Chuck, I'm kind of asking you too, why it didn't seem as thorough in the explanation? Because I mean, I had to watch that twice to be like, is that what it was even being talked about? Because all the, the different Teamsters and CSEA members I talked to, they gave me a bunch of different information to go through to see, see how this could be rectified.
Yeah, I think just in general, it's a pretty complex issue that in meetings with the multiple different collective bargaining unions arrived at this point. So I was certainly around in the December of 2021. I wasn't, presenting at that meeting as deputy mayor, but, was generally aware. I can't say that I certainly did not delve deep into it as I did today when that was going on at the time. But I think too, there was an effort to try to get something on the books because, again, if we were ever asked what authority do we have to even give this to people who have 30 years of service, the question at that time was, we couldn't answer that really effectively. There was certainly past practice and employee handbooks. We were talking about this January 1st, 2009 issue, but it wasn't codified in the law. But I think at that time, when that was done and how it was done, I think was what people felt like was the best, but clearly should have been at a future date to not have these issues kind of crop up how they did. And I did send this to the different collective bargaining units just to tell them this is what we're sending down, and they're also aware that there may be future tweaks specifically as it relates to transfers. I'd like to find a way to be as aggressive as possible. If someone is a copper firefighter and works 5, 6, 7, 8 years at another agency, I would hate to not have them transfer to Binghamton and finish out their service, not having to train them, et cetera, because of this health insurance, provision. But that's still a separate topic that we'll have to bring down to city council and figure out a solution for.
Thank you. Are there any further questions from any council members? Kavanaugh.
It sounds like this is fixing, a variety of issues that have cropped up over time. But just, do we have status quo, even though it's not fair probably, but cost-wise status quo versus with changes? What is the impact? And Chuck, feel free to chime in if you want. How big of an impact?
Yeah, I think that this is a benefit certainly that we're providing. But as it relates to police and fire, which are going to be the top costs that we have, they're always going to have that 20 years of service, usually with the city of Binghamton anyway. So not necessarily because that's how they get their retirement. So, but in terms of, estimates, et cetera, we're going to increase the number of retiree benefits that have to be reported in terms of our auditing and accounting, and Chuck can better speak to the exact language than me, but it's going to be an increased cost for sure, but the current status quo is not, I think, probably prudent.
Any additional questions from any council members?
Yeah, I've got some questions.
Hotchkiss.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm looking at the charter, and this section has been changed. So we're changing it now in 2024, and it changed in 2021, and then also changed in 2019, and then also in 2017. And I don't necessarily know what those changes are, but I feel like we're kind of this section seems to get a lot of attention, and I don't know how to calculate who's getting lost in the mix in these benefits, or like if we're tracking that, and it seems like the flip-flop doesn't create a lot of confidence in employees. And I don't know what the question is, like, how can we get this ironed out once and for all? And how can they be confident that this isn't going to happen again in 2 years or 3 years, that we keep going back and forth?
The some of the other changes that you mentioned, while they were amendments to that section of the charter, they didn't deal specifically with retiree health insurance. A lot of them had to be changed as part of, union negotiations or clarity as benefits were offered to certain collective bargaining units. This should be I don't want us to call it the be all end all, because I just said that there's maybe some additional tweaks that are needed, but by setting a date in the future, every employee currently employed by the city of Binghamton is covered. And then every future employee that's hired knows exactly their benefits at the date of hire. And that's what the 2021 law didn't have, where, things got changed in the middle of the game, essentially, and caused some confusion. So this is an attempt to lessen the amount of confusion that there is moving forward. And if the 2021 law was set a date in the future there that covered all employees, it could have been done that way at that time. It just wasn't, and what led to continual couple years of this confusion. And that was also based on the advice of, the Corporation Council taking a look at it too, to not set an arbitrary date in the past, but put a date in the future that covers all current employees. And what the collective bargaining units were also looking for as well.
Are there any further questions from council
Yeah,
members?
I think I'm still curious if we tracked how many people missed out on these benefits because they were in that like 10-year, they're under the 20-year. Do you have any idea?
It's a handful, I would say. I'm aware of, as of today, a couple in Teamsters, which were caught in the middle, and then a one or two in the fire department, but who would be eligible under this provision.
Any further questions from council members?
And I'm sorry, one last thing.
Councilwoman Middleton.
I'm sorry. Did this need to be expedited, or how? What's the status on this?
No, doesn't need to be expedited. I think the normal process would be good. If city council wants to expedite it, wouldn't complain, but that can be a decision that this body makes. Yeah.
Thank you.
Any further questions? I did reach out to some of the unions, and they did say and they both ended their emails, the two that responded, that they appreciate the mayor's office, his administration, and city council for clarifying this in the city charter. This is so they've been happy working on this process. And so, yeah, I heard from Bob Firmstone, and I heard from Dave Holleran, and they both were very positive.
Yep.
So
We've been working very collaboratively with them. Some fits and starts, but that's okay. And we got something that can serve as a 90% of what we ultimately need, and also solves the issue in the short term, which is good.
all right, I think we're good to move on. Thank you so much. So we have RL 24-49, an ordinance to amend the treasurer budget along with the salary and classification of the treasurer position. And I hand things over to Councilman Porter, Chair of the Employees Committee, and we welcome down our Director of Personnel, and we keep our mayor.
All right, basically it's just to increase the salary of the treasurer position from 58,000 to 75,000 annually. Also having the mayor work with New York State to modify the classification. So in other words, from it being appointed from the mayor to now having a civil service management be involved. Who has been doing the treasurer's job so far?
We've had an acting treasurer of Chuck Robinson from finance. He's been doing that work, and it's been split up amongst folks within the treasurer's office, since the last treasurer departed.
Well, how much is he getting paid? Is he getting paid that 58,000? Are we just now, are we splitting, since it's been now that you're talking about that it's been split, are we splitting the 78,000, excuse me, 75,000?
There's a little bit of difference. So because of the way that the city charter and the way that checks have to go out, there actually has to be a second signatory on our checks, a lot of them. So there needs to be a person that is technically on paper the acting treasurer. But in general, no one person has been doing all of that job. It's been, pretty split up evenly, a little bit of everyone kind of chipping in, specifically those folks who work in the treasurer's office. So it's a little bit different than other things. I know, you're just speaking about the Parks Commissioner. Those are the type of positions that can actually sit vacant because there's not a charter requirement, or they don't have to be a second signatory on a check. But we have had that person as an acting treasurer.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
So essentially what we're looking to accomplish here is basically twofold. Historically speaking, the treasurer position has been very difficult to fill and very difficult to maintain a qualified person in that job for a period of time. I'll let Kent in a second kind of talk a little bit about the recruitment efforts and issues that we've been having, even getting people to show up for interviews for it. But it is a low salary for the work that needs to be done. It's essentially an accounts receivable position. The amount of money that flows to the the treasurer's office is gigantic. The responsibilities of the role are gigantic, and the salary is not commensurate with that those requirements. So I don't think it's just a salary issue. I think that, when you have positions that need to be filled that are really not to do with politics really at all, and really should be filled by highly qualified people, having the position be on a 4-year track where, technically speaking, turnover could happen every 4 years, it's difficult to get people interested in positions, specifically in the sense that we have right now, where, technically speaking, this position is only through the end of 2025, in which there would have to be reappointments. So those are difficult things to manage. It's a different type of position probably than it was in the 70s and 80s, where you could get somebody in kind of a political patronage type of thing, and they could pretty much do the job. It's highly technical. It deals with a lot of financial aspects of the job. You'll recall, not in this administration or the last, but prior, there was a treasurer who was arrested for embezzlement. Certainly something we want to avoid. We want qualified, ethical people in those positions. And I think, really this is the mayor, I'm giving up one of my positions for the betterment of the city. I could appoint whomever I wanted to this. They would serve at the pleasure of the mayor. I just don't think that that's the responsible thing to do in the long term. And I think that it's hurting our ability to get qualified people, and frankly, the type of person who doesn't want to really deal with politics or get involved in that sort of stuff would be better served in this role. So what this does is it modifies the salary to what would be competitive, and then it also allows us to begin the process to work with New York State Civil Service to get this position reclassified, which is something we have to do through the state. But Kent can share some of the further details of what's been going on and the attempt to get someone qualified in that position.
All right, thank you. The mayor summed it up well. That's how we got to the point we are right now. This position was last posted in December. And we didn't attract a very qualified candidate pool at all. And we put that out there, on the Indeeds and the ZipRecruiter. So it's been out there. It wasn't just on the website. So we were more aggressive trying to increase that pool. And doing a benchmarking competitive, the salary is what we're recommending at the 75. The range, again, from comparator municipalities is 60 to 110. There's quite a range. it was difficult to compare apples and oranges someplace because all treasurers are not built the same. They do different things. So there is some degree of trying to put square pegs in round holes to make this fit into what our treasurer position looks like as compared to others. But so that's where the 75 figure came up with. It's kind of right in that ballpark. Makes it, while still making it competitive, when compared to other municipalities. So very few of them that you can compare in any way were less than 60,000. There's a couple out there, but they're not really comparable. So our candidate pools, like I said, were very thin. Weren't satisfied with them. We did interview and the skills just were not there. And again, as the mayor said, I'll just echo that. It's important. It's a really important position. Handles a lot of money going through there. You need someone who's well-trained, competent, and dedicated. And it takes a lot of hours to do that, and organizational skills. And you also need a manager because there are personnel in that department that need management and supervision. So it's been a difficult combination to find at that price point. I would say. And that was very much the feedback across the board, that the salary just wasn't there from networking with folks who were qualified and maybe would be potential candidates. They just were not enthused with that price point. And it's also the case that one of the former treasurers left to stay in the city for a different job. So it's not typically something that somebody would leave. And your treasurer is supposed to be pretty primo position to have. And you have folks who are willing to leave it because it just doesn't pay enough to stay in it. So, and they were a good treasurer, is my understanding, but just moved on because it just wasn't worth it.
I want to commend the mayor for giving up that position of appointing someone. I really appreciate that. My concern is dealing with having to, if now we move to the civil service exam, a part of it, and dealing with that, how can we update it so that we can make sure that we get the candidates that is best suited for it? Because I mean, civil service exam has it not been updated or within a recent?
Yeah, the civil service exams have a reputation for not being the most current instruments, for measuring these things. But I would expect that it has been actually updated, but we did look at that, but it has still been a little bit, but at least it doesn't reference typewriters and mimeograph or anything like that. So it's got that going for it. But that being said, the qualifications for this position are such that this is pretty easy. If you've gotten the qualifications that are required to be the city treasurer, and that's part of it. It's a meritocracy when you set it up like that, is that these folks know what they're doing, they're trained professionals, and this test really shouldn't be anything that they couldn't handle.
Okay. I don't have any more questions.
Any further questions? Oh, Councilman Hotchkiss.
How long have we been trying to fill that position?
This time around, since December 12th is when it was posted.
Okay. So I feel like we've had other positions that have gone longer
Oh, yeah.
that haven't been
Longer,
filled,
yeah.
but I mean, it's not necessarily a good thing. That's all I have for right now.
Yeah, I would say it's true that we have had some, but it's certainly problematic, especially when you're talking about money. So you're putting a lot of pressure on other people to fill in, and it's detail oriented work clearly, making sure that everything's exact and keeping track of that money. And that forces a lot of people to work, long hours, and doing meticulous work, and to keep that accurate. So it's not a sustainable way to go. You know what I mean?
And if,
Councilwoman Middleton.
I'm sorry, thank you, Hadassah. And if, the salary is moved, will Chuck Robinson take that position or you're still actively looking? So like if, if the salary range does go up to 75,000, would he take that position or we would still have to look for another treasurer?
We repost it and he would obviously be
I hope. so.
able to apply. Yeah.
That'd be smart. That'd be smart.
Councilman Kavanaugh.
Do we have an idea on the timeline with the state for reclassification?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Timeline for the state for reclassification of this,
Oh.
is this, they're gonna drag out for 6 or 8 months just to do
Yeah,
that?
this would be my first time through that process, so
Oh,
I'm
fun.
not entirely sure.
Mr. Mayor, do you have any?
I can't offer any insight on that.
Right, I think because the reclassification of positions for the little grievance pay issue we just had, that was something like 6 months, I think, held up at the state for that, unfortunately. So is there I'm wondering if there's a way to fix this for the future, but also get the position filled.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be nice, but given it takes 3 or 4 months just to get the exam results back. Yeah, it's a tough call.
Any further questions? Councilman Dundon.
Mayor, you said the treasurer is one of the signers on the 2 signer checks. Is this the comptroller or are you the other signer?
The comptroller.
Okay.
Any interest in trying to raise the pay, get somebody in there, and also pursue changing it as separate pieces?
I was thinking about that when you asked the question, but I hadn't thought about it in that exact way, so I didn't want to jump in. I guess nothing with the state is completely guaranteed. If we were able to get a highly qualified candidate who said, I would be willing to take a civil service test once it becomes offered, I would be hard pressed not to get that person in to alleviate the logjam. I would probably be on a case by case basis, but hopefully with the up in salary, we could attract more folks. But we'll talk about that and brainstorm a little bit. That was exactly what I was thinking when you were asking that question.
Yeah, I had that thought as well. But again, a big part of that is, as the mayor pointed out earlier, just, in the middle of a cycle, somebody coming in. And so if that's how it is initially, it's still a bit of a deterrent. I guess it's a good test to see how much of a deterrent it is versus salary, but definitely something to think about.
So with that, means actually conceivably splitting this RL into 2 separate RLs, or because this one has both the classification and the salary in it. Just want to make sure I know what the next steps are in terms of action.
Yeah, I think we did that in a way that it was basically as soon as we hear back from the state, we can kind of take that immediate action, get the person appointed from a civil service standpoint, probably have a call for the test as opposed to we wait to hear from the state and then have to start a legislative process separately and kind of have the conversation all at once. That was our intent on how we wrote that.
So if we were to pursue what we were just discussing, there'd be an additional piece of legislation about the in-between time, but between now and when the reclassification happens. Am I following that correct?
I think that the change in salary would happen immediately, and it was also kind of an understanding that we would ask the state as well at the same time. And so the salary would be raised, and then once we hear back from the state, we can immediately get the person in there from a civil service perspective. Whereas if we waited and didn't have that state piece until later, the person would be in the role, and then we'd have to come back to city council to then, I guess, ask the state, because or get
Right.
approval.
Yeah, we'd have to get approval from the state.
Thank you. Is there any further questions? Yep. All right.
I mean, I would just,
Councilman Kavanaugh.
if it's helpful to redraft this to give the maximum variety of options in this situation.
Okay.
Or if that needs to be done, or if you don't care, then I don't know. Yes, yeah, or
From what I understand, you're contemplating raising the salary, making it civil service, salary raise immediate, talk to the state, provisionally hire somebody. Once they're hired, they take the civil service exam.
Mhm.
Is that what
Mhm.
we're saying? So that's.
So
it's
that's
all
fine.
Right.
One
Yeah.
and the same.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right. We will be moving on to our next RL.
Thank you, Jenny.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Jen.
RL 24-50, an ordinance to correct the tax rolls for the 2024 tax warrant for various city properties. This has an expedition request. I'll be turning things over to Councilman Kavanaugh, Chair of our Finance Committee, and we have Terry Husby and Chuck, and Chuck
Yeah.
Shager, our comptroller.
Terry's not here, I don't think.
Right.
No. Okay. So this came in, and this is one of the situations where the proposed title has been duplicated exactly in the executive summary. So I actually have no idea what this is actually about, Chuck. Since this is the start of the kind of process, I will let you do an overview, please.
Before I get started on that, I just want to clarify something that the mayor said is the work that's being done in the treasurer's office. There's 3 individuals working in there. They're working there without much direction. Okay, without a person being there. There is one person that's probably a lead there that's helping out. All the actual duties of that person, the treasurer's office, is being completed by 3 different people in my office. Okay, so we're sharing those responsibilities. This RL right here that we're talking about is due to errors that were made in the treasurer's office when we do a tax roll. So at the end of the year, when we submit a tax roll to the county, we add late water bills, sewer bills, garbage violations onto that tax roll. Okay, when this was done in November, there were some mistakes. An individual in my office has spent basically 4 days going through all of these, trying to clarify the mistakes. Okay, what would have happened is the system didn't roll the way it was supposed to like take the bills off the receivables and go onto the tax warrant. They actually stayed on, and some people may have come in and paid it after it went to a tax warrant. So we got to correct that with the county. Other people have paid it to the city and the county, and we owe them that money back, which is not part of this. These are items that have rolled to the taxes and have been paid to the city and need to be corrected, or in some cases, they were rolled to the wrong apartment. Example, and I can't remember the street name, but it should have went to Broad Ave and it went to Robinson Street. Okay, the same number. So those are being corrected here. So this is going through all the different things that we rolled, looking at each one and correcting them here. The county's already signed off on this. We went through this with Terry, myself, and the county. And these are what we believe are all the mistakes that are out there to be corrected. This is something we do every year, but it's not usually of this volume. It's usually a couple. Okay, this one's significantly greater than normal.
So these,
So what?
again, it's not even in this paperwork. These are amendments to the warrants that were rolled over to the county to collect,
Yes,
that were paid at the city. So now
Yes.
these are,
in most cases, in most cases, that's the situation. There's some that maybe the dollars were incorrect or the address was incorrect, things of that nature.
all right, but these are all amounts being removed from what's payable to the county
Yes,
by the individual taxpayer.
yes.
And then do they get mailed a restated tax bill
I
or,
believe so. I believe so, Robert. I'm not 100%
or
sure.
it just hang, we don't know. It just might hang out there as a credit or something, or we don't know.
No,
That's a county question. Okay. So these are the ones where we owe them. How many were standing out there that went the other direction?
we went through everything that we put on the tax warrant on here that would roll the taxes, and we believe we have them all corrected with this group here.
But you were saying that this group is all ones where they paid with the city.
No, this could be multiple things, but the majority of these problems are ones that were paid at the city that got rolled the taxes. That's what a majority of these are.
Oh, okay. But some of them are, or we don't know which, from this. Are there any ones on this list that should have been owed to the city that weren't rolled over? I guess what I'm asking.
No,
No, that's a different list.
I don't believe there's any of those.
Oh,
Okay.
okay. So we didn't have any. How do I want to put this? We didn't have any under collection, only over collection.
I would say that's probably correct. Yes.
Okay. Anyone else?
I mean, I'm gonna see if anyone else questions. Okay, so, given there's more errors this year than typical, what measures are being taken by the office to prevent this from happening next year?
It's not my office.
Oh.
It's the office of the treasurer's office.
yeah.
And hopefully we hire the right person that we can bring up to speed and understand all of this. I mean, this is a complex office.
Any further questions? All right. Thank you.
I've got
Oh,
one, sorry.
Councilman Hotchkiss.
So I kind of like poked through the list for the addresses that I know. So I'm trying to understand like 80 Liberty Street that was recently demolished. It's owned by the city now, but we're expecting to collect $7,000 from
Say which property you're talking about?
80 Liberty Street. There was like a recent demolition,
Okay.
and that's a city-owned lot.
It's owned now by the city?
Yeah,
At the end of the year, was it?
that's a good question. I'm not sure. So is it like, it might be like paying for cleanup, maybe? I don't know.
Probably.
Okay.
It could be
Answering my-
cleanup, it could be water and sewer.
That gives a little bit more context for the numbers. That's all I had.
Would someone like to make a motion to expedite?
I was asking to expedite so we could put this behind us as soon as possible, than waiting another 2 weeks. So we can get it to the county and get the items into the system on Thursday.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Motioned by Councilman Dundon, seconded by Councilman Porter. The clerk can take a roll. We'll take a voice vote. So all in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed, any opposed? All right, great, the motion passes. Your expedition has been granted. All right, so now we move on to RL 24-51, an ordinance to amend the 2024 capital budget to close serial bond accounts no longer active. Hand things over to Councilman Kavanaugh, Chair of the Finance Committee, and we keep our comptroller in the hot seat.
Okay, Chuck, is this a normal, just to give us an overview, is this a normal consolidation of accounts, or, is this a new method of doing things, or?
This is
Whatever.
a normal way that we normally do this. We usually do this once or twice a year, okay? It's a matter of closing out the expense accounts after the project's done, so nobody spends money that they really shouldn't, okay? And to close the account out. So normally I'll have more than this. Normally I do the grants, but with some people being short doing everything, I did this myself, okay? There's gonna be some more coming down here in the future. Okay, I usually do two of these a year. Okay, one in before we go to bond and one later in like October time period.
All right, is this real money or is this authorized money or what?
This
So like
was-
I see like a $500,000 left in the fire department.
Right, so-
Construction budget area.
When we originally did the fire department, we won't say we're $500,000 under budget. We had multiple lines out there to do it. And we had like funds from the fund balance to do that. So actually, we had $500,000 that's still out there that could be spent on it, okay? That I want to close so it doesn't get spent on it. The project's done. There's one other issue outstanding with it right now that I left enough money in there to fix that problem. And that has something to do with the speakers and how calls come in and stuff.
So these are actual dollars that end up back in the general,
It's actual money that we will not bond for.
so authorized money that we will not actually bond for.
Correct.
Okay.
Any further questions? All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Chuck.
Thank you.
Is there, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion.
All
I
right.
second.
Motioned by Councilman Porter, seconded by Councilman Middleton. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Great. Thank you so much. We'll see everyone Wednesday.